What's going on, everybody? This is Mike, and this is Serial at Night, episode number 48. And boy, oh boy, I haven't done one of these in a while. A couple months to be exact, I think. And I usually do these when I get a little bit heated about something here and there. And this story going around about Guild Wars 2 developer ArenaNet firing two developers, specifically a developer by the name of Jessica Price. And the main point of my frustration really comes around a lot of the response that I've seen from gaming industry professionals that can't seem to wrap their head around the difference between a person's response to some posts that they thought out and really reached out to on a forum that allows people to respond to them, and the difference between that and the fact that sometimes the gaming industry and Twitter and social networks and gaming community as a whole can be a pile of assholes. And I've even been on that side of the fence many times. The difference here, well, not even the difference here. I mean, there's it's not a difference. I mean, specifically, we're talking about one thing in a nutshell. Jessica Price, former ArenaNet employee, wrote a very lengthy Twitter thread about basically the development of Guild Wars 2. And in and out is some character development, some of the challenges that they face in building this game and making this game, and kind of pulled back the curtain in a lot of ways. But also in a lot of ways, it came across as a little bit self-defensive. This is why, trying to justify certain decisions. And I think that's totally fair. What ended up happening, though, is after posting that, a very prominent Guild Wars streamer responded in a very polite way and had to disagree in a way and had a response. Jessica then proceeded to become very defensive at that point, if she was not already, and called the community Asshats. And she ended up getting fired for it. And this firing was met with pretty divisive conversation among the internet. So what I want to do first is I want to run through some of the specifics of what happened. I want to address some of the opinions I've heard others present. And then I want to kind of offer up my take along the way. And maybe a little more formally afterwards. And so let's start this thing out. So a lot of people have not read the thread, and at least in the podcasts I listen to, and there's been a lot of them, have not addressed what the response was to her. And this was Derora Gaming, very prominent YouTuber. Maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong, but basically Jessica Price at Delafina777 on Twitter posted this very lengthy thread about the narrative. In response, this very prominent YouTuber, I want to read what he said first. He said, really interesting thread to read. An A-OK sign. However, allow me to disagree slightly. I don't believe the issue lies in the MMORPG genre itself, as your wording seemingly suggests. I believe the issue lies in the constraints of the living story's narrative design. When you want the outcome to be the same across the board for all players' experiences, then yes, by design you are extremely limited in how you can construct the personality of the PC. But if instead players were given the option to meaningfully express their character through branching dialogue options, which also aren't just on the checklist for an achievement that forces you through all the dialogue options, 3, 4, right? Yeah, and we've been through that. Kind of this mic talking. Been through that where they're like, oh, here's dialogue, but you got to go through all of them. That kind of sucks. Back to his response. Then perhaps players would be more invested in the role-playing aspect of that particular MMORPG. Nonetheless, I appreciate the insight thread. End. So right there, we have a very good response from a prominent YouTuber and fan of the game. Obviously, this person doesn't sound like has any development experience or software development experience. I do, however, very extensive and accomplished development experience. I might touch on a little bit of that later. I don't know if it's completely relative to this thread, but I do want to maybe touch on that in a moment. Very well thought out. Her response to this was, thanks for trying to tell me what we do internally, my dude, 99. I don't know what that thing means, whatever. Now this person tries to de-escalate the situation. I'm not going to read the full response, but he said, you're getting mad at my obvious attempt at creating dialogue, right? Exactly. In which someone else responds, I agree, she didn't ask for anyone's opinion or your opinion. Yo, she put this on the internet, on Twitter. If she had something to say and wanted to really dive into the development experiences that she's had and the attempts that they've had at making this game a better experience for all the players, she could have went to leadership at ArenaNet and said, hey, you know what? I've got a really good idea for a blog post. I want to address some of the issues that we've had. I'd like to leave comments off, but I'd like to really go after this because I'm passionate about the product. She didn't do that. Instead, she went to Twitter, where all responses are allowed. She went to a forum where she knows she's, forum in quotes, a forum, a way for her to voice her opinion, where she knows she has many followers and fans and customers. She then proceeds to marginalize a prominent voice in the community. Right there, that's enough to give me a little bit of pause of like, why the hell would you even go publicly with this on your Twitter account, right? But fair enough. Fair enough. She didn't appreciate that feedback. And this is where I get a little bit frustrated because it basically comes across as if everybody in the community is just completely unfunctional and our entire lives are just playing your game, right? That none of us could be experienced, none of us could be software developers, none of us could have valuable input to give you, right? I think about it this way, just to pivot slightly. Deej, one of the community managers, I believe, at Bungie for Destiny, totally approachable online. If somebody said that to him, he would say, thank you for the feedback, we're all these blah, 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 give a company line and maybe give more details. But he certainly wouldn't start calling people names and marginalize their input. But it didn't just stop with disrespect and the marginalization of that one attempt. She then responded, like the next rando asshat to attempts to explain the concept of branching dialogue to me as if, having worked in the game narrative for a fucking decade, I've never heard of it, is getting insta-blocked. But it didn't stop there. She also decided to say, since we've got a lot of hurt man feels today, let me make something clear. This is my feed. I'm not on the clock here. I'm not your emotional courtesan just because I'm a dev. Don't expect me to pretend to like you here. Oh, fuck. I mean, this is someone looking for arguments. You've identified yourself on your own Twitter page as a ArenaNet developer for Guild Wars. So In doing that, I don't know how to break this fucking to you, but it's no longer your personal Twitter anymore. It was no longer your personal Twitter when you've identified yourself as that and then started posting about the development of said fucking game. I don't know what the fuck this person thought they were going to run into, but that's not how it works. Right? And this was in response to somebody who was just trying to provide an open dialogue with a person that's on the dev team about one of their favorite games. She then decided to go on another rampage about sexism in the game industry, which she very well can run that flag, right? Fly that flag if she wants to. And just went crazy. Right? But at the core of it, at the core of this issue, we have a person that went to a public forum in Twitter, represented themselves as a Guild Wars 2 developer and a employee of ArenaNet. We have an employee that decided to respond in a very condescending fashion to a very prominent figure in the community, proceeded to call the community asshats, then went on a sexist tirade about men. And I get it. Being a female game developer or even just a woman in the gaming industry has to be hard. But I don't think the solution is also lowering your standards to the same level as some of those same people. And then she decided to go on even further rampages. So essentially, to break this down to the lowest common denominator of what happened, she sought out a public forum, got some feedback, condescended down to the community and a prominent member. That member then decided that he was going to try to de-escalate the situation, almost apologizing for the miscommunication. She then continued to insult the community as somebody, as an employee of the company at this point. And then doubled down by going into more cuss words on her own Twitter. That is a fireable offense, people. I don't know any other way to break that down. There's no other way to break it down. And in her response, she said there was no standards communicated to her about the expectations of how they act online. I don't know. I guess we need to be very transparent in 2018 as far as making sure that we tell employees that it's not okay to condescend to our customers and cuss at them, to marginalize their opinions, to call them asshats. I mean, it's pretty goddamn offensive. And on the flip side, what people keep coming back and saying, well, she's probably heard a lot of shit, a lot of bullshit. It's a female developer. She gets it really bad. I don't disagree with that at all. And her frustrations came out loud and clear in this post. I don't disagree with saying that. That stuff, however, is separate from this conversation. It's separate from this scenario. There are better ways to handle that. In this scenario, she posted something on Twitter, got a response she didn't like, talked down to that community member, then doubled down by calling the community asshats and saying that she doesn't want to pretend to like them. That is a fireable offense. Now, somebody did come in to defend her and got fired as well. I don't know about that second firing, but everything we've talked about to this point is fireable. I don't know how anybody can see it any other way. Now, the fucked up part is I start listening to podcasts talk about this, specifically Giant Bomb, and they're mentioning they completely ignore the conversation that happened, and they go after, well, this is just, barely tipping the surface of shit that you hear on web forums. I mean, and I'm kind of generalizing what they said here and paraphrasing, but basically she barely scratched the surface of kind of offensive things on the internet. Right. But we're not talking about the internet toxicity as a whole. That's not the problem. We're talking about this specific situation. And nobody's accurately represented this situation. Right? I heard Jeff Gersman on the show say something, again, paraphrasing, along the lines of, it speaks to, you know, kind of maybe the company being in a little bit of a panic mode about the future of Guild Wars 2 and maybe the current success or lack thereof of success of the title. When I read this and saw these responses from her and her, I've been in this game for 10 years or this job for 10 years, my initial thought was, it sounds like she has some sort of complex about maybe, you know, her position as a game developer, right? I mean, at some point, if you start defending yourself in that 10 years of experience, I mean, the situation could have totally been diffused. Let me just have a stab at it. You know, thank you for your feedback. And, you know, that feedback is certainly something we hear a lot. But having been in this role for 10 years now, at least in the narrative branch of game development, unfortunately, it's not that quite easy. If it was, we'd probably go down that path. But I certainly hear what you're saying. That's a totally valid response. That would be the response you would give if you've identified yourself as a ArenaNet employee. Now, if she wanted to go ahead and start calling people asshats, she can, but there's going to be some consequences to that. You know, that's what's mind-boggling to me a little bit is, you know, some of these podcasts and podcasters acting like, I can't believe she got fired. It seems to point toward some insecurities in their product and where it's going, yada, yada, yada. And I cannot believe that none of them side, like, if I were to, let me say this, if I were to provoke, and I have some podcasters online and then called them names or really went aggressive and they came back and called me names and we went back and forth that way. No, that's not a fireable offense because that's the way everybody's describing this scenario as, oh my God, she responded some asshole Twitter followers. No. That's not what happened. What happened, again, is she went to a public forum, got some really well thought out feedback from a follower, condescended to that follower. That follower tried to de-escalate the situation, and then she went on to start to call the community names, tell them that they didn't care, so on and so forth. That is fireable. You know, and more importantly, when you look at a community-based game like a Guild Wars 2 and something that's always online, and I mean, this is maybe even careers in general, right? I have a software development background. I've ran up the chain and have seen a lot of things. Now, granted, not in the gaming community, not in the gaming industry, but a very highly visible community and industry. And in no way, shape, or form would I be able to keep an employee on staff that identified themselves as an employee of the company and then condescended down directly to our customers through cussing. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with them getting in internet spats and yada, yada, yada. Fair enough. But if they directly are speaking about our product, engage the community that uses our product, and then continues to shit on said community, it is a fireable offense. It is. I don't know how anybody can see it any other fucking way. And so to hear these podcasters act like, oh my God, the sensitivity and the entitlement about, well, she should be able to do that because the internet's a tough place and everybody's a bunch of assholes, that's bullshit. She had every opportunity to probably post that elsewhere and not take it to Twitter, and chose to take it to a public forum. The excuse of, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to cuss at customers, that's bullshit. and just ignoring the fact and trying to say the internet is toxic, so she's justified in being an asshole to this one specific person, and then going on a rampage still under the identification of an ArenaNet employee. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. I can't believe anybody would see it any differently, to be honest with you. And it is what it is. I mean, I went into it. I was kind of on that side for a little bit until I started to read all of the details, you know, because I had to get my hot take out there. Once I got my hot take out there, I realized, like, wow, I couldn't be further off base. And I went back to Twitter to figure it out, you know, and that's the sad part. I mean, I keep looking at this, and she continues to play the victim card. At one point now, she said ArenaNet escalated the recent firings that directed mobs towards her. No, you escalated an honest conversation about game development by calling the community asshats, by saying you don't care about them. Then don't fucking talk about it on Twitter. You know, furthermore, I mean, it keeps going, to be honest with you. Here, let me pull up this quote. She says, where is it? Here it is. She says, you guys can respond if you want, but I've got any notifications from people I don't follow muted, and I'm not going to check responses. If you are a legit industry press person and want to get in contact with me, we have mutual networks through which you can do that. Nothing says deferring accountability like, hey, I just want to post shit on the internet, but I'm just going to ignore everything and every response people wants to throw my way. And a legit industry, you're not a fucking legit industry contact anymore. You're not in the fucking industry anymore. You got fired for being an asshole to the people that support your game, which, if so facto, make sure that you have a fucking check week to week. Like, honestly, and this is the type of entitled bullshit that, fuck that, I'd fire her too. And if you read down the rest of her Twitter timeline, it's just as much bullshit over and over and over. I cannot believe it. And the people that are responding to this, whether it's, you know, Giant Bomb specifically, Dense Pixels spoke about it this way. Did you even fucking read it and take a look from, like, hey, I have a person out there that's representing themselves as an ArenaNet employee, and they're going rogue and completely just shitting on the people that are buying our product? Get the fuck out of here with that take. I mean, seriously, that's, I don't even have, I gotta be honest, I'm kind of done beating a dead horse here, but fuck off with that. Seriously. Anyway, I had to get that one out. That's Serial at Night, episode number 48. This is Mike. See ya.